It finally happened. After 6 weeks of silence, Bethesda has finally started to tease Starfield yet again, as earlier today we get 3 very interesting new videos that are meant to provide some context as to the world of Starfield. These videos are pretty interesting. They definitely have a strong artistic expression, but they also contain some very interesting lore, tidbits, and even a bit of backstory and visuals for Starfield itself. Although things may not be stopping here, as the release of these videos, as well as several other videos in the future, may have been secretly teased in the Starfield Direct, so we may even know the dates as to when we're getting more promotional content. So what did we actually get here? Bethesda, at least I think these are made by Bethesda, put out 3 animated videos around 3 of the 4 major cities in Starfield. So they showcase a brief story of someone in New Atlantis, Neon, and in Aquila City. Unfortunately, Cydonia, the 4th major city in Starfield, is once again left out of the promotional videos, but who knows, maybe that's coming down the line. And the first video is going to take place in New Atlantis. It's titled Supra et Ultra, meaning above and beyond in Latin. This opening shot is pretty cool. This is the galaxy map in Starfield, and the highlighted stars here are Vol 2, Cheyenne, and Alpha Centauri, which are going to be the stars associated with the 3 major cities that are being highlighted in this 3 video series, and the city overview shot is incredibly informative, as it is nearly identical to what New Atlantis will actually look like in-game. So although throughout these videos we're seeing a stylized take on Starfield, it very much so seems like that what is being shown in these are going to heavily reflect what is actually in the game, and this information is going to be particularly important in a moment. We see this guy getting off his ship. This person is named Kent. He is a courier pilot but aspires to live in New Atlantis. Kent goes on to join the UC Vanguard, and this is an interesting perspective, as we've heard from the Starfield Direct that we will also have the opportunity to join the UC Vanguard. So it seems very likely that our in-game experiences will closely mirror what we actually see Kent doing here. The Vanguard armor featured here has some color differences compared to what we saw in the Direct, but overall actually looks incredibly similar, and it seems like we get a highlight reel of some of the general UC Vanguard activities. It feels like this is the United Colony Space Force, and it's going to reflect some of the combat encounters we will have if we do join this Space Force for this faction. And these metal things we keep getting handed are credits. It seems like being in the UC Vanguard actually pays super well. Although once they earn their riches and get their home, we can see a rather unsatisfied Kent looking off into the unknown. This is another pretty cool shot, as we have almost this exact same view from the Direct itself, so you could really compare how this matches up with what we'll see in game, and you have to wonder if Kent will end up being a real character we could meet in Starfield, but eventually with his upgraded ship, Kent will return to space. Atlantis video overall was definitely the simplest of the bunch, but continuing on, we transition to Where Hope is Built, showcasing Vanna, an orphan in Aquila City. Vanna's ship here is broken and unable to launch. We can see he is having some kind of engine issue. And in one of the next panning shots, we could see Aquila City. It was established in 2167 by Solomon Coe, and that name is very likely going to be relevant, as Sam Coe is one of the major companions in Starfield. So you have to imagine Sam Coe is going to be a descendant of Solomon Coe, clearly one of the city's founders. Vanna seeks to fix things and attempts to go trading on the main road of Aquila. In the background, we could see the sign for Shepherd's General Store, another thing we have seen during the Direct. So it means that Vanna is actually standing right about here in game. But as she goes exploring, Vanna looks to one of the memorials in Aquila City, and we get a flashback to the Colony War. The Colony War happened about 20 years before the events of Starfield, and this is between the Freestar Collective, their capital being at Aquila City, and the United Colonies, their capital being at New Atlantis. In this war, we could see mechs being used, but we know that Starfield will not feature land vehicles. Although, in some of the past gameplay, we actually could see mechs spotted in the background. So perhaps something happened during the Colony War that led to mechs no longer being used, and that'll be the in-game lore reason for us not having access to them. But what we're actually witnessing here is the death of Vanna's parents. She's kind of having a flashback or a visualization of what happened to them. The colony war is kind of a big unknown in Starfield. It seemingly was around some colonies, but we don't know much about what actually happened here or really who won the war. But from there, we transition to a poor farmer being held up, and it looks like this robber is equipped with a tombstone, this time around having a scope attached to it. But thankfully, Vanna comes to the rescue, clearly having maxed out her unarmed skill, and in the end, she's able to finally get the part she has been looking for her spaceship. But this is a really interesting scene, because I think this robber may in fact be a young version of Sam Coe. Sam Coe uses the exact same weapon, scope and all. In some other gameplay, we could see the weapon without a scope. And even further, it seems like the hairstyle of both Sam Coe and this random robber matches quite closely. In the gameplay, we're introduced to Sam Coe in Aquila. Of course, this is set just outside of Aquila. So what I'm thinking is this is actually set before the time of Starfield, about 5 to 10 years prior, and we're looking at a young version of Sam Coe who perhaps hasn't quite matured yet. I felt like this was a nice little video, and it's meant to reflect the major differences in lifestyle from New Atlantis to Aquila City. New Atlantis is the future spacer world, an advanced colony and civilization. They view themselves as the true descendants of Earth, while Aquila City is much simpler. They have a simpler way of life. We can see things like farming and even down to the video titles. The New Atlantis video was above and beyond and written in Latin, while the Freestar Collective video is much simpler, just around where hope is built. So each of these videos are likely a larger commentary on each of these major factions. But then of course there is the third major city, and perhaps the most fun video of all with Neon. This video is titled The Hand That Feeds, where we follow two Neon street rats with Ada and Harper. Neon street rat is actually going to be one of the traits you can start with in Starfield, so technically as you jump into the game, you could have the same background of basically growing up doing these activities. This first overview shot of Neon is actually a pretty big one, as this very likely reflects what the city will actually look like in game. Thus far for Neon, we haven't seen a nice panning shot like this. We had some concept art in the past, but it looks like this place will actually be pretty massive. Not the largest city in the game, that definitely goes to New Atlantis, but still quite considerable. Throughout this video, you can see a bunch of crimes being committed, this in exchange for weapon upgrades and likely some credits throughout. This seems like something we will very much so be able to get involved in, or at least see happening in Neon. We have seen some teases of joining or getting involved with criminal organizations and how that will be a huge aspect of this city. And even in the ESRB rating, we hear how we'll be able to set up an illicit chem lab. But things very rapidly change as a Ryogen Industries card is found. This corporation is going to be the main controller of Neon, and we get a look outside of their Epic HQ here. We have even seen what is very likely the interior of this location in some of the past gameplay during the direct, but then we get into some moral qualms for Ada. She's against finishing off the Ryogen employee, while Harper is very eager to do so, leading to a conflict between them. And in the end, we could see how Ada gets the opportunity to join Ryogen here, given a gun, a card, as well as a contract to sign, which you have to imagine will reflect what we're able to do in the game ourselves, as we will likely have the ability to join this faction or at least partner with them ourselves. And we can't ignore the name of this video, The Hand That Feeds, which seems to heavily indicate that Ryogen Industries is really what is keeping things going here on Neon, and almost having the double meaning of how many in Neon are resorting to thievery or crimes to actually feed themselves. I found each of these videos to be pretty fun. They weren't necessarily heavy on the details, but I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of what was shown here are things we will actually be doing in game. And maybe these are even real characters from Starfield. Maybe these are people we could meet, or maybe we even see them later on in their journeys. This is a bit of a prequel as to what happened before the events of Starfield. But frankly, after 6 weeks of waiting, just about anything would be exciting. And it seems like there's a very good chance more is to come. One Reddit user actually predicted that a new video would be posted today. He created and published this entire write-up just 30 minutes before the first of these videos went live. I'll have a link to this post down below, but the core of the speculation was around that grav jump scene from the direct. While trying to break down the scene and the audio component specifically, he felt like the numbers here would correspond to dates for future marketing or teasers. So you can see a number sequence that is multiples of 7. So in this post, they predict that 42 days before the release of Starfield, some other type of marketing material would be posted, and then a week later, 35 days before the release, another thing would be posted, and so on and so forth. Well, as you can imagine, today marks 42 days before the release of Starfield. And although yes, this could just be a coincidence, it definitely would be an interesting coincidence. Fan frustration has definitely been building with the lack of Starfield info, and while these videos will almost certainly work to quell that somewhat, you have to imagine if we go another couple of weeks without much info, things will return to the negativity. And to me, it would just make sense for things to be starting here. In past years, Bethesda typically does this. They have the big showcase at E3 or around it, and then they go quiet for a little while. A lot of people get much needed time off before they begin that final marketing stretch. I wouldn't be shocked if we see one major media outlet get a hands-on and be able to post their own impressions of Starfield, but then hopefully thereafter we'll see other media members or even content creators also get to go hands-on with the game and post their impressions, before eventually full-on reviews come out. But that said, if you want more Starfield, check out this video where I go over some of my extended thoughts and even some controversial opinions I have for this game.